So, Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to our program on Nectar of Devotion. This is a class on the book Nectar of Devotion by ISKCON's founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This is a summary study of the main book called Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu. And today we will be discussing the 19th chapter of this book. And as part of our program, this will be the last chapter of this book that we will discuss. Although the book has many more chapters, somewhere around 50 plus chapters are there, but the chapter 20 onwards are more about exalted topics of devotional service. So we will restrict our discussion till chapter 19. And the title of this chapter is Devotional Service in Pure Love of God. Overall, this is our 21st class and will be the last, I would say, class on the Nectar of Devotion. But we will have two more classes, which will be based on the quizzes that we will issue soon. Now, let me invite Anupama Mataji to kindly lead us in the Mangalacharan prayers, recitation of Mangalacharan prayers. Mataji, are you there?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, welcome. Please,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् स्वगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nicely chanted. Now let me move to the next item, which is the recap of the previous class that we had on Bhava Bhakti. Although we assigned this service to Vasudevan Prabhu, but Vasudevan Prabhu sent his apologies that he will not be able to prepare the summary as he was not able to attend the class and the time was too short for him to see the video and prepare the summary. So I took this service on myself, and let me do the seva of presenting the recap of the previous class also. So the theme of the previous class is qualities of Bhav Bhakti, which is chapter 18 of Nectar of Devotion. In chapter 17, we had discussed about Bhava Bhakti in general, and in chapter 18, we had discussed about the qualities of Bhava Bhakti. So the previous class we initially discussed that in Bhav Bhakti, or when the devotee attains this stage of Bhav, there are some external symptoms that the devotee starts to manifest. The symptoms are like tears flowing from the eyes, shivering in the body, and then maybe faltering of the voice, etc. And Rup Goswami writes that external symptoms like tears, shivering, etc., are not sufficient evidence of Bhava Bhakti. And why he's saying so? Because if somebody is an actor, the actor can imitate or uh, a bhakta or a devotee who is already at the stage of bhava, that person may hide or conceal these symptoms. When the symptoms manifest, the bhakta or the devotee may not be interested in showing to the public. So Srila Rup Goswami is saying that identifying bhav bhakti actually should not be based on the external symptoms, rather they should be based on some other more reliable symptoms. And he provides a list of qualities which actually cannot be imitated or concealed. And he provides 9 such qualities, and these qualities are tolerance, not wasting time, detachment from material enjoyment, pridelessness, hope in Krishna's mercy, longing for Krishna's service, taste for chanting Krishna's names, attachment in discussing Krishna's qualities, and love for Krishna's abode. So there was some for each of these words there was a specific Sanskrit word was given, Sanskrit phrase was given. Like tolerance was known as Shanti, not wasting time means Avyarth Kalatvam. The third one was Virakti. Fourth was Man Shunyata, and fifth one is Asha Bandha, and Samut Kantha, Nam Gane Sada Ruchi, Asaktis Tad Gunakhyane, and Pritis Tad Vasati Sthale. After giving this list, Srila Rup Goswami gives a reference from scriptures about regarding each of these characteristics of Bhav Bhakti. So you can see that all these items can actually be understood and or they cannot be faked by a practicing devotee who is at the stage of bhav. So an actor cannot fake it, and if a devotee is at a stage of bhav, he cannot hide them. He will certainly show tolerance, certainly show avyarth kalatvam or virakti or manashunyata and so on. So Srila Rup Goswami has given a list which is very, very reliable and easy to identify a bhav bhakta if we uh, try to test that devotee on this basis. Then Srila Rup Goswami continues the discussion and mentions that sometimes non-devotees, and whom we are calling non-devotees is specifically those people who are desiring liberation, who are doing some transcendental practices, maybe devotional practices also, but their internal mood is desiring liberation. And fruitive workers, that means karmis, may also exhibit signs of bhav. So these non-devotees may also sometimes exhibit signs of bhav, but they are not at the level of bhav bhakti. So uh, he Rup Goswami provides a very technical name to such devotees when a neophyte, or which means neophyte would mean a devotee at a very initial stages, a new devotee who has just started his Krishna bhakti. So when a neophyte or non-devotees symptoms displays symptoms of bhav, then it is known as ratya bhasa. So ratya bhas is actually a combination of two words, rati and abhas. Abhas means semblance, means it looks similar to what the original thing is, and rati is actually another name for bhav. Now Rup Goswami gives two types of ratyabhas, and these two types of ratyabhas, one is known as pratibimb. Pratibimb is the English translation is reflective, and chaya, and chaya would mean shadow. Then he discusses what is pratibimb ratyabhas and what is chaya ratyabhas. So in discussing pratibimb ratyabhas, he says pratibimb ratyabhas appears in those who execute devotional service with ulterior motive for fruitive gain or liberation. This is a reflection of bhav of advanced devotees. So what does it mean? In those devotees who are reflecting pratibimb ratyabhas, who are showing pratibimb ratyabhas, what is their speciality? They are doing some devotional service. They are actually doing some or practicing some limbs of bhakti, uttam bhakti. They are practicing these limbs, but internally their motivation is not pure love of God. Internally their motivation is either some fruitive gain, Maybe they want some material benefit, some money, some name, fame, power, uh, attraction of opposite sex, etc., etc. Some fruitive gain, or they may be desiring liberation. Liberation means mukti or moksha, but they are uh, desiring these fruitive gain or liberation, but actually they are doing it via practicing the angas or limbs of devotional service. So what happen in this case is they may associate with some pure devotees or advanced devotees, and the advanced devotees are having that rati in their heart. So these devotees who are actually having ulterior motives of fruitive gain and liberation, when they associate with these advanced devotees, then their rati actually they are reflecting in their heart. So the rati they see in the pure devotees, that rati get reflected from their heart, and that's why the symptoms of external symptoms like tears, etc., may manifest in the devotee exhibiting Pratibimba Ratyabhas. Then we discussed about Chaya Ratyabhas. Chaya Ratyabhas is a little different from Pratibimba Ratyabhas. In Chaya Ratyabhas, these are those people who are executing bhakti or limbs of bhakti out of social convention or curiosity about the Lord. So they have some curiosity about the law. Let us see what this is. What are these angas of bhakti? Let us practice them. Or maybe because of some social convention, they started to follow these practices. So in that case, they they also show these kind of symptoms or rati, symptoms of rati, but these symptoms are not very strong. The symptoms are very weak. That is why it is known as chaya. So the chaya is a outer shadow, or simply a, uh resemblance of the actual original picture. That is called chaya. And then uh, Srila Rup Goswami mentions that chaya actually is better than pratibimba, because the motivation of practice of devotional service in chaya is less ulterior. Because they don't have ulterior motive like jnana and karma. So that is why it is better, and that is why the saying that it is better than pratibimba, because there is less ulterior motive. Further, he describes that ratyabhas can become real rati by mercy of a pure devotee. So it is not that if somebody of some devotee is having some ratyabhas, it is a bad thing. If the Ratyabhas, a devotee who continues to associate with the pure devotee, continues to uh, rectify the ulterior motives, in the long run he can also start to exhibit real rati. So that means Ratyabhas can become real rati by the mercy of a pure devotee. However, offenses can destroy even best of Ratyabhas. So if he continues to follow the pure devotee, continues to uh, take association of pure devotee, the Ratyabhas can convert into real Rati. However, if he or she starts to uh, make some offenses, Vaishnav Aparadh, then the best of Ratyabhas can even be destroyed. It will vanish. So when there was a discussion about offenses or aparadhs, it was mentioned that there are three type of Vaishnava offenses, three type of Vaishnava aparadhs in severity, in their strength. So one is, the first one is grave, then medium, and slight. Uh, So if a devotee who is showing having some Ratyabhas makes a grave offense towards a Vaishnav, then even real bhav, even if the Vaishnav has a developed real bhav, also is destroyed, completely destroyed. If the offense is medium, then this bhav turns into bhava bhas. Bhav, if there is an actual bhas, actual bhava in the devotee, it will it the strength of that bhava will reduce, and it will become like a bhava bhas. It will become like a semblance of bhava, some resemblance of bhava, not actual bhava. If the offense is slight, then the bhava actually decreases in intensity. So this is what we broadly discussed about the Vaishnav offenses. And one more point, important point that we discussed was that sometimes we see that a devotee or a person has just started devotional practices, and uh, after doing little devotional practice, the person starts to exhibit bhav, the symptoms of bhav. Suddenly they appear, and the devotee hasn't done much sadhana. Now, in such situation, what we should understood is that what we should understand is that it should be certainly coming from the past life of the devotee. So, like in Bhagavad Gita, also we see in sixth chapter where Arjuna asks that what happens to a yogi who is not able to finish his sadhana, is not able to finish his yoga practice, is not able to perfect his yoga practice. Then Lord Krishna says that either he gets birth in very aristocratic family where he gets a lot of facility for doing bhakti, or he may get birth in a family of a devotee where after having some impetus of bhakti, the previous impressions of bhakti will become alive, and then the devotee will continue to uh, practice bhakti like that. So this is in nutshell was the summary of previous class, and that also kind of finished the discussion on bhav bhakti in Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu or Nectar of Devotion. Now we will uh, start our fresh discussion today with the uh, 19th chapter, and the title of this 19th chapter is devotional service in pure love of God. So before I start that fresh discussion, let me very quickly recap on what we have so far studied in Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu or this book Nectar of Devotion. Initially, we discussed that this uh, book actually has four division. It has got eastern side, western side, northern side, and southern side. And why there is a classification like this? So as we see that this is Bhakti Ras Amrit Sindhu, so ocean. So ocean has a eastern side, it has a western side, it has a northern side, and it has a southern side. So these are the four divisions. In each of these divisions, there are waves, and these waves are kind of another name for chapters. So Eastern division has four waves: Samanya Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhav Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. So Samanya Bhakti, we discussed the definition of Uttam Bhakti, we discussed the characteristics of Uttam Bhakti, Shubhda, uh, Kleshagni, etc. And then most of our course was focused on this topic called Sadhan Bhakti. And in the Sadhan Bhakti, we primarily discussed about Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. And within Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti also, Vaidhi Bhakti took the most of the chapters. Then chapter 17th and 18, we discussed Bhav Bhakti. And finally, today we are going to discuss Prema Bhakti, and we will conclude our discussion for this course, which primarily or which is only talking about the Eastern division, types of Bhakti. Then there are other divisions also like Southern division, Western division, and Northern division. Here we are primarily discussing about components of rasa. uh, then in Western division, we are discussing about primary rasa, and in Northern division, we are discussing mainly about the secondary rasas. So we will not be discussing on Southern, Western, and Northern division in this particular course, but I would encourage devotees to take up this reading in their own time in case they are curious or they want to improve their understanding of the science of devotional service. We then, as I mentioned, wave number two is sadhan bhakti. So as I said, wave number two or chapter number two, which is comprising of sadhan bhakti, is the most longest part in this particular Eastern division. And as I mentioned, we have discussed about what are the types of Uttam Bhakti, Sadhan, Bhav, Prem, and then we discussed the definition. We discussed about the characteristics of Sadhan Bhakti, and then Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti took us the most of the time. Definition of Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti continued and until till Ek Anga and Anek Anga Bhakti we discussed. We discussed many other things like uh, primarily our discussion was more elaborate when we started discussing about 64 limbs of Vaidhi Bhakti. And among these 64 limbs, we discussed about 5 potent forms of bhakti. And ultimately, we also discussed about practices that are not bhakti. They may appear spiritual practices, but actually they are not bhakti, like jnana and vairagya, like that. Finally, in this chapter, we had discussed Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti, which comprises of Ragatmika Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. This is the table which we have been discussing in our classes always. So you will see that in this particular column, the title of chapters which appear in Nectar of Devotion are listed, and they have been mapped together with the corresponding verses of Bhaktir Samrat Sindhu. So you can see that we started about uh, uh, the first stage of devotion, which is yeah. So second wave starts from chapter number 3. Rather, it starts from chapter number 2 itself. You can see here 1.2.13. So right, starting from chapter number 2, continuing till uh, almost see chapter number 16. We had discussed about sadhan bhakti, which comprises of Vaidhi sadhan bhakti and Raganuga sadhan bhakti. Then 17th and 18th, we discussed about Bhava Bhakti. And today, we will be discussing about devotional service in the pure love of God. So it is Prema Bhakti. And relatively, it is a very small chapter. You can see only 21 verses are there. Uh, and the reason for this relatively small chapter is we will discuss now in this slide why it is only a brief discussion of Prema Bhakti, uh, because prem is simply the mature state of bhav. So we had discussed bhav bhakti in 17th and 18th chapter in quite elaborate detail, and prem bhakti is actually simply a mature state of bhav. So that is why only some additional details you will see we will discuss in this particular chapter, but otherwise it is much more similar to uh, bhav bhakti as we have already discussed. Bhav Bhakti has been described extensively by Srila Rupa Goswami, and we had discussed this in our previous 2 classes. What is the difference between Bhav and Prem? Bhav softens the heart, while Prem softens it completely. It is completely softened in Prem stage. Another way of expressing that is Bhav and Prem possesses ecstatic love of God, but such love is not as intense at Bhav as it becomes at Prem. So the love of God is certainly there at the Bhava Bhakti stage, but it is in intensity, it is not as intense as it is at the Prema stage. So at the Bhava stage, if you recall, we compared it with the ray of the sun, and in the Prem stage, we compared the sun actually manifesting fully in the sky. So in Bhava stage, the love of God is not as intense, but in Prema Bhakti stage, it is very, very intense. So as usual, we will start understanding the about Prema Bhakti by uh, giving some attention to the definition that Srila Rupa Goswami has presented in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. So in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami makes presents a definition, and is in this definition there are two aspects, and we have been discussing like this in the definition of Uttama Bhakti also. What is the Mukhya Lakshana or Swarup Lakshana, and what is the Gauna Lakshana or the secondary Lakshana. So there are primary characteristics of Prema Bhakti and there are secondary characteristics of Prema Bhakti. So let us see what is the definition of Prema Bhakti. It says, Samyak Mashranita Swanto Mamatva Atishaya Ankitaha. Mamatva Atishaya Ankitaha. भावः स एव सांद्रात्मा बुधये प्रेम निगत्यते. Bhava sa eva sandratma budhaye prema nigatyate. Let us see each word, each line. Samyak. Samyak means completely. uh, there is nothing left. Mashranita. Mashranita means softening. And swa anto. Anto means end. End means there is nothing more remaining as far as softening of the heart is concerned. So it says Samyak Mashranita Swanto. Prema softens the heart completely. Then uh, other secondary characteristics of Prema Bhakti is Mamatva Atishay Ankitaha. So the word Ankit means marked. It is marked by these qualities. What are these qualities? Mamatva. Mamatva means possessiveness. I'm sorry here. It should not be passiveness. It should be possessiveness. Possessiveness. Yes, it should be possessiveness. Mamatva atishay ankitah. Prem produces extreme possessiveness for Krishna in the devotee, and we will discuss little bit about what does it mean by possessiveness. So there is extreme emotion in the devotee that Krishna is mine. Mamatva. Atishay. Atishay means a lot of, extreme, intense. So Mamatva Atishay Ankitah. Prema produces extreme possessiveness for Krishna in the devotee. And what is the Sarup Lakshana? What is the primary characteristics? Bhava sa eva sandratma. So sandratma means condensed, very dense. So we had discussed this sandratma visheshatma in our when we were discussing about the characteristics of bhakti also. That it becomes very at the level of prema, it becomes very condensed, it becomes very thick. Uh, so bhava sa eva sandratma. When bhava becomes extremely condensed, bhava sa eva sandratma, it is called prema by the learned. Budhay. Budhay means learned. Prema nigadyate. It is called prema by the learned. So you can see there are two characteristics, primary and secondary. Primary characteristics is simply saying that when the bhava becomes so intense, it becomes really condensed, then it actually is called as prem. It is known as prema bhakti. And other secondary characteristics are that in when a devotee is at the level of prema bhakti, the heart softens completely, and there is a feeling of extreme possessiveness about Lord Krishna. That Lord Krishna is actually mine. And we will understand a little bit about this word mamatva in this slide. Mamatva means highly possessive ownership of Krishna. Highly possessive ownership of Krishna. What is the difference between highly possessive ownership and normal ownership of Krishna? So ordinary devotional service has the mood of tadiya. What does tadiya means? Tad means the other person. Tadiya. What does it mean? I am Krishna's. Uh, I belong to Krishna. I belong to Krishna. Krishna is my master. I belong to Krishna. That is the mood at the level of tadiya. And this mood is not also an ordinary mood. This is also a very exalted mood. Having this feeling that I am Krishna's. Krishna is my master. I am Krishna's. But in Prema Bhakti, this mood intensifies to the extent that now the devotee starts to possess Krishna. There is a mood of mamatva. The mood becomes so intense that the devotee thinks now that Krishna is mine. Now Krishna is mine. I am Krishna. So this mood of tadiya doesn't go away. That mood is still there. I am Krishna. That mood is still there. But now the love becomes so intense that the devotee starts to see that Krishna is mine. Now, uh, in Bhava Bhakti, one sees the Lord and understands his eternal relationship with Krishna. While in Prema Bhakti, one enters the Lord's pastimes in his eternal spiritual identity, overwhelmed by the mood that Krishna is my son, or Krishna is my friend, or Krishna is my lover. So, uh, in the ordinary devotional service, the mood of Tadiya is there. I belong to Krishna. While in Prema Bhakti, the mood is Mamatva, where the emotion becomes very intense and the devotee starts to think Krishna is mine. And we discuss these two bullets also. In these two bullets, Bhav Bhakti, at Bhav Bhakti stage, one understands there is an eternal relationship between the devotee as well as the Lord. That eternal relationship is there. But at the level of Prema Bhakti, the devotee not only sees the eternal relationship but actually enters into the pastimes, enters into the pastimes of the Lord. And while what does it mean by entering into the pastimes of the Lord? He starts to understand, or he starts to have this emotion that Krishna is my son, Krishna is my friend, or Krishna is my lover. For example, when Yashoda Mai uh, certainly understand that I belong to Krishna, I am mother of Krishna, I belong to Krishna. Certainly she understands that mood. So that mood of Tadiya is already there in Mother Yashoda. But at the same time, she also thinks that Krishna is mine, Krishna is my son. And if Krishna doesn't behave properly, then it will be bad impression on my part. So I need to educate Krishna, I need to discipline Krishna. So that kind of mood is there in the Prema Bhakti stage. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami supports this definition of Prema Bhakti by providing some references. He provides one reference from Narad Pancharatra. What does Srila Rupa Goswami says? Srila Rupa Goswami, while quoting this reference, mentions Prem is defined by Bhishma Dev, Prahlad Maharaj, Uddhav ji, and Narad as that bhava which has possessiveness. Possessiveness means mamata, related to Vishnu or any of his forms, and to no one else. And to no one else. Now, when we studied Bhagavad Gita, at many places in many verses, there is a description that when a devotee advances in spiritual life, then this feeling of possessiveness goes away. But here we are talking about the same feeling of possessiveness. But this feeling of possessiveness is different from the feeling of possessiveness which we have been discussing in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is more like a material possessiveness. But this is more of a divine possessiveness. So the difference between material possessiveness and divine possessiveness is exactly opposite. In material possessiveness, we want to maximize our gains and minimize our losses. But in divine possessiveness, the devotee actually wants to maximize the gain of Lord and minimize his own gains. So, uh, what is another difference between this possessiveness at the prema stage and the other material possessiveness? Uh, when we have this attraction for Lord Krishna, or when we have this extreme possessiveness related to Lord Krishna, and we don't have any attachment to anyone else, that actually does not mean that we don't love others also. Hmm. Love for Krishna does not remain limited to Krishna alone. So when we develop this unlimited attraction and unlimited love for Lord Krishna, our love actually through Lord Krishna flows to everyone else in this whole universe. So because Krishna is God, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, he loves everyone. So loving Krishna intensely or with lot of attachment, with lot of possessiveness, actually means we also starts to love everyone else like Lord Krishna does. So love for Krishna does not remain limited to Krishna alone. This love flows through Krishna to everyone. This is actually not true for material possessiveness. In material possessiveness, what happens is that the individual wants that whatever he possesses remains limited to him alone or her alone. It is not to be shared with anyone else. But in love for Krishna, when it is unlimited, this love actually starts to flow to everyone else in the universe. And example for that is, like in this definition, there is a mention of Bhishma Pitama. So Bhishma Pitama not only loved the Pandavas, but he also loved Kauravas equally. So he showed his love for Pandavas by supporting them because they were righteous. But Bhishma's love was shown to Kauravas by correcting them. He always wanted good of Duryodhan. He always wanted good of all the family members of Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra, etc. However, uh, this love does not mean that he should support their activities because they were adharmic in general. So Bhishma was at the level of Prema Bhakti. So he showed love to both the Pandavas as well as the Kauravas equally. Now we will discuss a little bit about how there are two ways to achieve prema. How can we achieve this prem? And there are two pathways that have been described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Nectar of Devotion. And these two ways to achieve prema is by the maturation of bhava and by Lord's extraordinary mercy. By maturation of bhav and by Lord's extraordinary mercy. So when the prema bhakti is achieved by bhav bhakti, through bhav bhakti, then it is known as bhavotthaha, bhav utthaha. And when it is achieved by the mercy of the Lord, it is known as prasad uttaha. So prasad word, generally we use this word when we are getting some sanctified food, some food that has been offered to the Lord. We eat those remnants of the food. We generally call that food as prasad. But actually, the real meaning of word prasad means mercy. So whenever we receive that food also, actually it means the mercy of the Lord. The Lord has mercifully left that food for our consumption. He has simply mixed his devotion in the food and has left that food for our consumption, for our spiritual advancement. Uh, So that is the meaning of word prasad. Prasad actually means mercy. Now you will see that same thing in the form of a block diagram. Here, uh, there are two pathways to prema. One pathway is through bhava, and uh, if the person has achieved bhava, then it actually leads to prema. Another pathway is that it doesn't need anything else except Lord's mercy, and mercy can come anytime. Mercy can come even at the neophyte stage also if the Lord so desire. However, it is very rare. It doesn't happen so often. But in a normal course, a devotee out of his endeavor actually can achieve prema through bhava bhakti. There are two subdivisions of achieving prema through bhava also. So what are those two divisions? Subdivisions. One is through the Vedi bhakti route. So a person is following the rules and regulations of Vedi bhakti, like we discussed the 64 limbs. And while following those 64 limbs, he achieves bhava and then actually reaches prema. Similarly, a devotee who is at the Raganuga sadhan bhakti stage, he's practicing or she is practicing Raganuga bhakti, and while practicing Raganuga bhakti, the person achieves bhava and then actually achieves prema. So this is these are the two subdivisions related to bhava stage. Uh, when it is related to Vedhi bhakti, when the prema is achieved from Vedhi to bhava to prema, it is known as Ved bhavottaha. And when it is achieved from Raganuga to bhava to prema, then it is known as Raganuga bhavottaha. Now, Rup Goswami provides references for both Vaidh Bhavottaha Prema and Raganuga Bhavottaha Prema. What does he say? He is providing one reference from Srimad Bhagavatam. He's saying that prema arising from Vaid Bhava that appears by following Vedhi Sadhan Bhakti. By performing Vedhi Bhakti, a devotee develops great attachment to Krishna that intensifies into possessiveness, which means anurag. And like a madman, he chants, dances, cries, sings, and talks wildly, oblivious to public opinion. So, idea is mainly That prema arising from Vaid Bhava that appears by following Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti. And by following this Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti, devotee develops great attachment, which in due course of time intensifies into possessiveness that Krishna is mine. And when that stage comes, then the devotee chants and dances like a madman. He chants, he dances, he cries, sings, and talks wildly, oblivious to public opinion. Oblivious to public opinion means he doesn't care for what the public is thinking about himself or herself. So that is Vaid Bhavutta. So here primarily what is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam is that prem coming from Vaid Bhav by following Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti. Next, he gives the example of Raganugiya Bhavottah Prema. So we have already discussed these Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti and then Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti. And if I may take some time to remind you what we discussed in Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti. First of all, in order to understand Raganuga Bhakti, we had described about Ragatmika Bhakti. When we discussed about Ragatmika Bhakti, we understood that these are actually devotees at the exalted level, at the level of prema. They are at the topmost level of devotional ladder. And those devotees who are aspiring to become those like the Ragatmika Bhaktas, get the same mood of service of Lord Krishna as Ragatmika Bhaktas, actually are known as Raganuga Bhaktas. And while discussing Raganuga Bhakti, we had discussed one example of one girl, Chandrakanti. So this girl Chandrakanti, she was worshipping the deities of Lord Krishna, and she was uh, feeling like dancing in front of Lord Krishna, and not only feeling like dancing, she actually continued to dance throughout the night. So that was the spontaneity of love that arose in her heart. So that is what we discussed. So again, the example of Chandrakanti is given in this particular chapter. We discussed Chandrakanti's example in the chapters of Raganuga Bhakti, but again, this example has come because we are discussing Raganugiya Bhavottah Prema. So through Raganuga Bhakti, how one can achieve, how one can reach the Prema Bhakti stage. So here it is mentioned in Padma Puran. So this reference comes from Padma Puran. Here it is said, Chandrakanti observed celibacy and did not desire any husband because she had exclusive affection for Krishna. Exclusive affection for Krishna. Exclusive affection for Krishna is indicative of her possessiveness, which is the symptom of prema. So what we discussed short while ago, mamatva. Mamatva means that Krishna is mine, and tadiyatva means I am Krishna's. So this Chandrakanti, she did not desire any husband, and because she had exclusive affection for Krishna, she continuously meditated only on Krishna because she already had bhav and sang songs about him, heard his stories with hairs standing on end. So already these symptoms are there, hair standing on end. So this is actually an example of a devotee who is practicing Raganuga Bhakti, because Chandrakanti was aspiring to become like a gopi in the spiritual world. And while aspiring to become like a gopi, she developed this attachment for Lord Krishna. So she was actually practicing Raganuga Bhakti. And while practicing Raganuga Bhakti, she developed this love of Lord, pure love of God. And this is reference coming from Padma Purana. Now, so what have we discussed? We have discussed uh, uh, how do we achieve prema, and we discussed two ways to achieve prema. One is through bhava, and another one is through the mercy of the Lord. For bhava, we understood two subdivisions through Vedhi and Raganuga. Now we will see a reference example of mercy. How through mercy prema is achieved. So achieving mercy or achieving prema through mercy of the Lord is known as prasadottaha prema. Prasad, as I discussed, means mercy. Uttaha means arising from prasad. Prasad uttaha prema. So that prem arising from Krishna's mercy. The Lord's great mercy includes his giving his personal association to the devotee. This is Ati Prasad or extreme mercy. Krishna said, there are devotees like Bali Maharaj and Gopis who did not undergo Vedic study, they did not go for Vedic pilgrimage, they did not worship sages or executed severe austerities, but simply by association with the devotees or with the Lord Himself, they achieved the Supreme Lord. They achieved the Supreme Lord. So, the meaning of word mercy means uh, what we don't deserve but we get out of someone else's mercy, out of someone else's kripa. And I have been giving this example often in the past also in my classes, where I give this example that if you are standing on crossroad driving your Mercedes and a beggar comes knocking your window, give me 5 rupees, and you feel so merciful, you feel so much compassion for the beggar that you said that, please sir, don't worry about 5 rupees, you please come and take this car itself. So the beggar did not deserve probably even 5 rupees, but out of mercy, you decided to give the whole Mercedes car to the beggar. So this is called mercy, uh, which we don't qualify for. We are not qualified for receiving that benediction, but we receive because the higher authority was pleased with us or somehow was merciful to us. So here, similar thing is being mentioned here, that prema arising from Krishna's mercy. And how Krishna is giving this mercy? By giving his personal association to the devotee. Like he gave this association to Bali Maharaj and association to the gopis, who and these gopis actually did not undergo any Vedic study. They did not go to any pilgrimages. So did not go to any pilgrimages means what? So one may question that actually gopis were in the Vrindavan also only, and Vrindavan is a pilgrimage. So why are you saying that they did not go for pilgrimages? So what it means is that the gopis actually did not consider Vrindavan as a pilgrimage, or they did not perform any dedicated uh, activities for dharma to attain Lord Krishna. So that is what it means. Did not go for pilgrimages. Why did it not consider Vrindavan as a pilgrimage? Because it was their home. They were born and brought up there in Vrindavan. So did not see Vrindavan as a pilgrimage. Rather, they saw Vrindavan as their home, as their hometown. And generally, people don't see as their hometown as a pilgrimage. They don't associate with their hometown like that. Then the discussion now progresses to, uh, so far we have discussed that how prema is achieved, uh, through what pathway prema is achieved, and we discussed two pathways. One is through bhava and one is through mercy of the Lord. And when we discussed through bhava, we discussed about vedhi bhavottah prema and raganuga bhavottah prema. But now, uh, here we are discussing that how prasad uttama prema is of two types. Prasad uttha prema, we discussed, is by the mercy of the Lord. Now this mercy can come to two different type of devotees. One devotee is situated at the level of Vaidhi Bhakti. One devotee is situated at the level where the devotee actually perceives the Lord as very great. He is very powerful with awe and reverence. But in the second stage, the second type of prema, the devotee perceives Lord Krishna only with respect to his sweetness, not greatness. So there are two aspects of the Lord. One is greatness and another one is sweetness. When we talk about greatness of the Lord, we are talking about how Lord is the controller of the whole universe, how Lord actually is controller of all demigods, how Lord creates the many planets, many systems, etc., etc. That's where we talk about the opulence of the Lord, the greatness of the Lord, the powers of the Lord. But when we discuss about, say, the loving dealings of the Lord with his devotees, like Lord Krishna is dealing with Mother Yashoda in Damodar Leela, or Lord Sri Ramachandra is dealing with Mother Shabri in Ram Leela. There we see how the Lord has a very sweet heart, has a very merciful heart, has a very loving and caring heart. We discuss how Lord Krishna elevated Putana to the highest level of being a mother to Lord Krishna in the spiritual world, although she came to poison Lord Krishna. So the Lord has two aspects. One is related with his greatness, another one is related to his sweetness. So when the mercy of the Lord comes in the life of a devotee, and this devotee is of the mindset, is of the vision, is of the emotion that Lord is very very great, Lord is very very great, then what happens is he achieves prema. But that prema is known as mahatmya gyan yukta prema. Mahatmya means greatness, gyan means knowledge. So knowledge of greatness, yukta means uh, together. So together with the knowledge of greatness of Lord, when that love comes, and when it comes, when there is a mercy of the Lord, then love with knowledge of Krishna's power and Godhead, uh, realization of Vaikuntha Vishnu is possible by this. That type of prema is known as Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema. And the second type of prema is Keval Prema. In Keval Prema, there is only knowledge about Lord's sweetness. There is not even a tinge of love that Lord is great. Lord is very, very powerful. There is no tinge about Lord's greatness, Lord's power in Keval Prema. Lord with love with knowledge of Krishna's sweetness only in Vrindavan, not even in Mathura and Dwarka. So this is mainly about Vraja Bhakti. Love with knowledge of Krishna's sweetness only in Vrindavan. So in Dwarka, Lord Krishna did not exhibit sweet pastimes. Lord Krishna exhibited sweet pastimes only in Vrindavan. So that is why Keval Prema is only limited to Krishna's sweetness in Vrindavan. Now, Rup Goswami, as usual, he will provide references from the scripture. So first he provide reference for Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema, and then he will provide reference for Keval Prema. Let us see what reference he provides for Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema. This reference comes from Narad Pancharatra. Rup Goswami says, firm affection for the Lord more than anyone else. That includes knowledge of Lord's powers, by which one attains four kinds of personal liberation. And what are these liberations? Salokya Mukti, Samipya Mukti, Sarupya Mukti, and Sarshti Mukti. So we had discussed about these different type of muktis in our previous class. So what it says is that when the devotee achieves firm affection of the Lord more than anyone else, so nobody else has that kind of affection in the for that devotee other than the Lord. So he has complete affection for the Lord, and but that affection comes together with knowledge of Lord's powers. That is actually known as Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema. Uh, and what is the benefit of this kind of prema? The devotee can reach Salokya Mukti or Samipya Mukti, Sarupya Mukti, and Sarshti Mukti. So this reference comes from Narad Pancharatra. In this kind of prema, awareness to Krishna's powers restricts feelings of Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Uh, so when we have the understanding that Lord is very great, then our prema is only limited to two stages. It could be limited only in Shantaras or in Dasyaras. The Sakhyaras, which means prema in the mood of friend of a Lord, and in the mood of a mother or a father of the Lord, or in the mood of conjugal relationship with the Lord, that is not there. So in Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema, Sakhya Prem, Vatsalya Prem, and Madhurya Prem are not there. The Prem are the level of Dasaras and Shantaras, they are only there. And who actually achieves this kind of Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema? Those who have practiced Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti and then get the great mercy of the Lord attains Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema. So somebody is a Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakta. He is following the 64 limbs of bhakti, etc., very sincerely, nicely. And one fine day, he gets mercy of the Lord. Now, when this devotee gets the mercy of the Lord, he will achieve prema. And that prema will be at the level of Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema. So he will either get Shanta Prema or maybe Dasya Prema. he will not be able to get prema of Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Now, Keval Prema. Keval Prema, again, the reference comes from Narad Pancharatra. I think previous reference also came from Narad Pancharatra. This one is also from Narad Pancharatra. Here, what does it say? Keval Prema is that which possesses continuous, spontaneous desires to please Krishna without any personal motives, and thus brings even Krishna under their control. And what was Mahatmya Prema? In Mahatmya Prema, uh, there was knowledge of Lord's powers. However, there is no such uh, knowledge of Lord's power. Rather, it is the desire in the devotee is we continuously serve the Lord, we spontaneously serve the Lord, we spontaneously and continuously try to please Lord Krishna without or devoid of any personal motives, devoid of any understanding that the Lord is great. And this kind of feeling actually brings even Lord Krishna under the control of devotee. And who get this kind of a keval prema? Those who have practiced raganuga sadhan bhakti and then get the great mercy of the Lord attains keval prema. So somebody is a raganuga sadhan bhakta. He is aspiring to follow into the footsteps of one ragatmika bhakta in the spiritual world. And that ragatmika bhakta could be Mother Yashoda, or could be some gopi, or maybe some other relationship, maybe Nand Maharaj, etc. So this Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti, follower of or practitioner of Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti, when this particular person gets this mercy of the Lord, then this particular devotee is going to get Keval Prem. Because he does not have even a small uh, understanding of Lord Krishna as the powerful Lord, as the Lord who controls everything, as the Lord who is very, very great. That kind of a understanding is not there. So this kind of Raganuga Sadhan Bhakta will achieve Keval Prema. So that kind of uh, provides some discussion around what are the causes of Prema Bhakti, and then what are the different ways to achieve Prema Bhakti. So we discussed different ways to achieve Prema Bhakti. Means one is through Bhava Bhakti, another one is through Prasad of the Lord, or means mercy of the Lord. In Bhava Bhakti also we discussed two possible subdivisions. One comes from the Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti, another one comes from the Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti. And we discussed those things. And then we discussed about Prasadotta Bhakti. And in Prasadotta Bhakti, we discussed about two types of Bhakti: Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema and Keval Prema. One who understand Lord as very great, achieve Lord's mercy, and achieves Mahatmya Gyan Yukta Prema. One who only understands Lord's sweetness, achieve Keval Prema, only pure devotional service, full of love, full of sweetness of the Lord. And these devotees who are at the level of Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, they are they actually get this Keval Prema. Now, Rup Goswami says that this mercy aspect, getting prema of the Lord by getting mercy of the Lord, is very, very rare. Very, very rare. Then, what is the normal course? Normal course is through Vedhi Sadhan Bhakti, then Bhav Bhakti, and then Prema Bhakti. Like that, a gradual path. So, we attain prema only by persistent, ardent practice, not by a sudden stroke of mercy. We don't get prema like that. Very hardly, very few people, or very, very rarely anyone can get prema by stroke of mercy. And today we don't qualify for prema, and some way or the other, Lord was merciful to us, and then just like that, He gave us that prema without our knowing our qualification, without considering anything about our qualification. But Rup Goswami here in this slide, what Rup Goswami is trying to say is that uh, prema normal route is persistent, ardent practice. And when we do that, then there are gradual stages of progression in the path of bhakti, And that's what Srila Rupa Goswami is listing in verse number 15 and 16. And Rupa Goswami says this verse, this is a very popular verse, and we often quote this verse. Let me read out for you. This is 15th and 16th. आदौ श्रद्धा तथा साधु संगो अथ भजन क्रिया तथो अनर्थ निवृत्ति स्यात् ततो निष्ठा रुचिस्तथा तथा आसक्तिस्तथो भावस् तथा प्रेमाभ्युदञ्चति साधकानाम् अयं प्रेम्णा प्रादुर्भाव भवेत् क्रमः प्रादुर्भावः भवेत् क्रमः. So pradurbhava bhavet kramaha. Pradurbhava means it comes, it appears. Bhavet means it happens. And kramaha, krama means in a particular order. Krama also means gradually. So it doesn't happen overnight, it happens gradually. Actually, it is a multi lifetime process. Multi lifetime process means we started bhakti in this lifetime, and then we continue to practice this bhakti in our next lifetime. Whenever we get the impetus in our next lifetime, we once again start to pick up this practice of bhakti in our next lifetime, and that's how we do it. So these are the nine stages they develop in an individual, and these nine stages are adau shraddha tatha sadhu sango. So shraddha means what? Faith. Faith means in Hindi we call it Vishwas. Vishwas means that Lord Krishna actually is the ultimate goal of my life. That some slight Shraddha, some slight faith is there in the heart of devotee. And how do we get that faith? We get that faith actually by hearing in the association of devotees. We went to some meeting, somebody invited us for a Gita class, or somebody invited us for Gita online class, or maybe we were invited to the temple and we just happened to sit in a class, we just happened to talk to someone. And by that association, when we heard about the details of bhakti, or we heard about the practices of bhakti or devotional life, we developed some faith. Oh no, these people look nice. They are very good people. They are gentle people. Oh, the environment of temple is so auspicious, that environment of temple is so peaceful, no? and and so nicely these question answer my questions have been answered by these people. Oh, I am finding the pastimes of the Lord very sweet, very enchanting. They are very entertaining also. Like that, maybe there is some emotion that arises in the heart by this association, and that is known as shraddha. And when that emotion starts, when that vishwas and then that faith starts, then the person again wants to do that association of devotees. And why now this association of devotees done? To learn bhakti. Earlier it was started just as an impetus, and it gave us some faith, but that was kind of accidental. But in the second stage, actually, it is a more purposeful endeavor where the devotee starts to associate with the other devotees, other advanced devotees, to learn the different aspects of bhakti. And when he learns those aspects, the next stage is bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya means he starts to practice bhakti. He himself starts to practice bhakti, like hearing of various uh, pastimes of the Lord, knowledge about Bhagavad Gita, knowledge about Srimad Bhagavatam, knowledge about Ramayana, etc. From all bhakti literature, he starts to do hearing, Shravanam. And then when he learns by doing that Shravanam, he also starts to chant. He also starts to speak about those subject matter. Sometimes he may start to talk about the subject matter with other people also. While performing these practice of Shravanam and Kirtanam, what happens is then the dirty things of the heart starts to come down. Dirty things of the heart starts to minimize or reduce or mitigate. That stage is known as anartha nivritti. Anartha means which does not have any earth, which does not have any meaning. So we have many meaningless anarthas in our heart: pride, lust, anger, pride, uh, uh, lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. So destruction of unwanted qualities and activities starts by doing Shravanam and Kirtanam. So uh, what I want to emphasize here is that as practitioner sadhakas, as practitioner devotees, uh, we should make it a point that we continue to do our Shravanam and Kirtanam on a regular basis. On a regular basis. And when I say regular basis, means once in a day, at least for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, we should do some kind of Shravanam and Kirtanam. We should do. And what that Shravanam and Kirtanam will do, that will bring us anartha nivritti, that will destroy the unwanted qualities like lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy, and will bring some peace in our heart. While doing that anartha nivritti, when the nivrittis are gone, then the heart is cleansed. When the heart is cleansed, then the person becomes steady. He becomes steady in his practice of bhakti, and that steady state is called as nishtha. Steadiness in bhakti without confusion. Without confusion means, why these confusion are coming? Confusion comes because of lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. And while doing the practice of bhakti, when pride, illusion, envy, lust, anger, greed, they become small, they become weak, then they no longer actually controls us. We are not controlled by these things. We become very steady because the disturbances are less, or disturbances are more or less gone. So steadiness in bhakti without any confusion. We continue to do this nishtha stage, and what happens now is we develop a taste, we develop a desire. Uh, Slowly and slowly, this lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and we are going. So we are becoming more and more, I would say, disease free. Disease free. Now we want to further strengthen our muscles. We want to further gain more health. So we become not only disease free, we also become energetic. We also become healthy. Yeah? So it means ruchi, taste or desire for the Lord with intellectual direction. Intellectual direction means we develop this ruchi, uh, and we develop this ruchi through some intellectual understanding, through philosophical conviction. That's how we go. But as this ruchi stage further intensifies, further deepens, then comes asakti. What is asakti? Asakti means attachment or spontaneous desire for the Lord. And this is now independent of intellectual direction. Independent of intellectual direction means now I start to develop love for the Lord. I start to develop much more eagerness for the Lord. Now I cannot remain unless and until I do some bhakti practice. I do engage with devotion of the, with association of the devotees, like that. So that is known as asakti, attachment or spontaneous desire for the Lord, independent of any intellectual direction. And then comes bhav, which means ecstasy. And we have discussed, when bhav comes, what happens, that ray of love of God actually starts to manifest in our heart. So that is bhava stage. And then when this ray of love of God further intensifies, many more rays, this becomes very dense, very condensed, then it reaches to the prema stage, which means pure love for Lord Krishna. So why Rup Goswami is giving this table, he's giving this table is that this is the normal course. This is how it progresses. These are various progressive ladders. Normal course is this stage, and mercy, by achieving prema by mercy, is very rare. It doesn't happen uh, occasionally or usually. Then Rup Goswami gives much one more interesting characteristics of prema bhakti, and here he's talking about what does it like being a prema bhakta emotionally from inside. How does it feel like becoming a prema bhakta? So he's saying the ever fresh prema arises in the heart of a person who is very fortunate. Something he's saying that it is actually not a very mundane thing. It is not a something like free for available freely. It is something achieved by people who are very fortunate. That person's behavior is very difficult to comprehend even for those knowledgeable of scriptures. So when a person achieves this stage of prema bhakti, then his behavior become very peculiar. very, very unusual. And it becomes so unusual that those people who are around that person, they don't are not able to comprehend, are not able to make sense of the behavior of this person. Normally people will think that when somebody will do prema bhakti, or when somebody will do some kind of bhakti practice, then uh, they are doing this bhakti practice mainly to destroy their suffering and increase their happiness. But uh, with that kind of understanding, they try to see these prema bhaktas. So is this devotee trying to increase the happiness, or is this devotee trying to reduce his sufferings? But these prema bhaktas experience this happiness inside, and there is only one criteria of their happiness. If they are able to achieve the Lord, they are happy. If they are not able to achieve the Lord, they are unhappy. It is not that uh, their suffering has reduced, they become happy, or their happiness has increased, then they become happy, and then they become ecstatic. No, it is only in relation with the Lord. So that is the reason why when normal ordinary people observe this prema bhakta, or watch this prema bhakta, uh, they are not able to comprehend what kind of person is this, why is behaving like this. Then Rup Goswami gives one reference from Narad Pancharatra. Here Lord Shiva is speaking to Mother Parvati, and what Lord Shiva is saying: O goddess Parvati, the person who is mad with love for the Lord, being absorbed in the highest bliss, does not know at all his own happiness or distress. Now, this is the situation of that person. If that person is inside, is there any material happiness or distress? That intense love of God is so intense, that love of God in the heart of this person is so intense that he kind of becomes blind to his own material happiness or material distress. Material happiness means, for example, he's standing in some place where it is very hot, so he will not feel the heat. Or he's standing in some place where it is very, very cold, he will not feel the cold. He will not understand whether it is hot or whether it is cold. He is oblivious. He does not know at all what this happiness or distress mean. He's so absorbed in the highest bliss that he does not know at all about his own happiness or his own distress. That is the kind of emotion this kind of prema bhaktas demonstrate, which is very difficult to comprehend for normal mundane people of this world. Then uh, here Srila Rupa Goswami gives further details. He's saying that there are in prema also there are multiple stages. In prema also there are multiple stages like prema, sneha, rag, anurag, mahabhav, etc. So there are multiple stages. So sneha and other stages are the manifestations of prema, but because they are very rare, even in those who have practiced bhakti, the distinctions will not be described here. So these different stages of prema, Rup Goswami is saying that because it is very, very rare, I don't think it is a good point to discuss it here at this point. Uh, so there is a little footnote here that these stages are actually described more in the western section. Western section is, the first section is eastern section, second one is southern section, the third one is the western section. So in the western section, you will see that these details are described more in elaborate details. Okay. And then Rup Goswami also provides additional reference where you can learn more about Prema Bhakti. He's saying that more descriptions of Prema Bhakti you can find in another literature called Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And who wrote this book? Sri Sanatan Goswami has written this book. Sri Sanatan Goswami is elder brother of Sri Rup Goswami. So Rup Goswami write in this verse, 20th verse, says, Sri Sanatan Goswami, my master, has clearly described all the sweetness of the conclusions of bhakti in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, though it is very esoteric. It is very esoteric. Esoteric means very difficult to understand. But He has clearly described all these details, various stages of prema bhakti, etc., in the another literature known as Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And finally, he concludes, Srila Rupa Goswami concludes this Eastern division, and in particular, fourth wave or fourth chapter of this book, Bhakti Samrat Sindhu, by offering his pranams. Yeah, he is offering his obeisances to various people. And what does he say? He says that I pray my pranams, I offer my pranams to Lord Gopal, whose form is eternal and who is the source of all the avatars like Lord Ram and others. And I pray my obeisances to Srila Sanatan Goswami, he who beautifies Gopal Bhatt Goswami and Rup Goswami and bestowed Krishna Prem to Raghunath Das Goswami. Like that, actually, uh, this verse, the 21st verse, there are two different translations, there are two different meanings. So, this is a beauty of Srila Rup Goswami, that how he composes a verse which actually can be translated in two different ways. So in the first translation, it is saying that Lord Gopal, I pay my obeisances. And who is this Lord Gopal? He is the source of all avatars, who is eternal and who is the source of all avatars, like Lord Ram and another other avatars. And then he gives second translation of the same verse. He says that I pay my obeisances to Srila Sanatan Goswami, who beautifies Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Rup Goswami, and offers Krishna Prem to Raghunath Das Goswami. So by offering his pranams, by paying his obeisances, Srila Rup Goswami concludes this final chapter of Eastern division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and fourth wave of this Eastern division, which is based on Prema Bhakti. And he concludes this like after offering pranams. So with this, we will conclude our discussion, the classroom discussion, the teaching discussion that we are supposed to have on Bhakti Samrat Sindhu. I hope you found this class or these classes to be enriching. It would have increased your conviction, your understanding for the science of devotion. Certainly, it has increased and improved my own conviction uh, to understand bhakti or devotional service in a much more scientific way. And I have grown up in my confidence that the acharyas we are following, like Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they knew what they are doing, they knew what they are writing. And in these books, we don't see anywhere any kind of speculation, any kind of uh, discussion like I think it should be like that, I feel it should be like that. It is very conclusive, very in a very conviction filled language. The whole book has been written. So certainly this has given me more and more conviction to the path I am following of Uttama Bhakti. And I hope similar emotion might be felt by the audience, by the devotees who are attending this program. So thank you very much. And now we can open the floor for any discussions, any observations, any remarks, any questions devotees might have. All glories to Nectar of Devotion, all glories to Bhakti Samrat Sindhu, all glories to Srila Rupa Goswami, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा, दंडवत गुरु जी।
Dhanvat Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
भाई, एक हफ्ता एब्सेंस बहुत मुश्किल हो गई थी।
Okay.
हाँ, ये कुछ अजीब सी आदत पड़ गई है आपकी अभी। बड़ा लास्ट वीक वाज डिफिकल्ट, बट कोई बात, इंतजार में कि सूरज फिर आएगा, सुबह रात बीत जाती है।
Yeah, so I have one remark on that.
जी
So bhakti can be done in two ways.
जी
One is while we are in the association of our devotees or our fellow devotees, uh, or pure devotees, or whatever we may want to say. And
जी
another one is in the separation of those devotees. So
जी
Lord Krishna is saying that uh, that devotional service in separation is even more intense than compared to devotional service in the in while meeting the devotees. So that's what I would say.
जी गुरु
So
जी.
one is known as Vipralamba Bhav,
जी
and other one I don't know the technical name, but Vipralamba Bhav means devotion in separation.
जी जी जी. उसकी अपनी इम्पोर्टेंस है, उसकी अपनी
Yeah.
महिमा है.
Yes,
काफी
Prabhuji.
ये अच्छा कि आपने ये भी स्ट्रेस कर दिया. थैंक यू वेरी मच. हाँ, कितनी बार
Thank you,
थैंक यू
Prabhuji.
करे कम है, पर ठीक है,
Yes. Okay.
बोलते रहेंगे जितनी बार बोल सकते हैं.
Ji Prabhuji. So thank you very much. And then any are there any questions or any other remarks?
नहीं जी नहीं, आज तो थोड़ा सा काफी मंथन में चला गया हूँ, तो अगली बार
Okay.
शायद.
Chaliye. So maybe let me ask you one question. Do you also
जी
have that kind of a feeling? I mean, asking to all the devotees, do you also have that kind of a feeling that it is a very, very detailed science? Although it may be a bit technical, but when we start to learn about this, it is possible to understand, and it also give us a much more detailed idea of how the science of bhakti is actually described. So, is there similar conviction or similar feedback from the devotees also?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Yes, Kartar Prabhu. Oh, Ishwar Prabhuji. Yes.
uh, at this point, I would say that efforts on your part have been excellent. And given our concentration, our background, and I think our karmas of the past, the total effect is definitely positive. That much I can definitely say. But
Hmm.
we all know that the whole thing, the science is esoteric. You yourself said right now.
Right.
So it will take time, but perhaps the path you have shown to us will have results, and certainly we are grateful to you, Lord Krishna, and perhaps the all friends. Once we come together and create an atmosphere where Lord Krishna
Hmm.
is the sought after
Hmm.
sort of Lord, so naturally, we will definitely get something out of this great exercise. And we
Okay.
want to keep understanding this science, the esotericity that it has offered. So
Hmm.
we'll have to go to that extreme, that insanity,
Hmm.
to get to the root of this. I
Yeah, yeah.
think we
So,
will take long time, but we are positive about it. Thank you
okay.
very much.
So, okay, so last word was very good that we are positive about it. So that means
Yes,
that with this science or the esoteric science, you feel excited to know more about it rather than intimidated to know about it.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
It's a challenge, and
Yeah.
every bhakta should try to take it head on. Only
Hmm.
then things will move on.
Yeah. So for general devotees, like what we are, at least I can say it for myself that the part of the book that is more relevant or the most relevant is the Vaidhi Sadhan Bhakti, not even Raganuga Sadhan Bhakti. What is
Yes,
most relevant to us is understanding the 64 limbs of bhakti, understanding the prioritization that Srila Rupa Goswami has asked us to do on the five most potent forms of bhakti out of those 64 limbs. So, if you concentrate and focus more on those 64 limbs of bhakti in our day to day sadhana, and specifically pay attention to those last five limbs, I think that would be the best part of our learning. And the remaining is that when we learn about raganuga bhakti, bhav bhakti, prema bhakti, etc., then it makes us give us the feeling, or at least it should give us the feeling that it is so exciting, it is so detailed, it is so worthwhile exploring this art of Uttama Bhakti or following of Uttama Bhakti, art and science of Uttama Bhakti, that uh, something very, very sweet, something very, very exalted, positive, divine is awaiting in our life, or maybe next life or in next to next life, if we are continuing to sincerely follow this path of Uttama Bhakti. So that is with that I would like to, I think, conclude this whole discussion, a general conclusion on what is my feeling of Bhakti Samrat Sindhu or studying this nectar of devotion.
Yes, very true, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay,
All
Ji.
glories to my Guruji. All
Thank you,
glories to
Prabhuji.
all colleagues and satsangis, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, Ji.
Hare
So
Krishna.
thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
So
Hare
one small announcement. Next week we have one of my favorite devotees and preachers in ISKCON, His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He is visiting Bangalore city. He is visiting Bangalore city from 5th of January till 10th of January. And in order to take maximum benefit of Prabhu's association, I would rather be attending his classes and programs wherever they will be organized. There is a good and a strong likelihood that Prabhu may also visit my house, give his personal association for maybe some time, few hours. And if it is possible for me to uh, share the links of the classes that Prabhu is giving in while he's in Bangalore, I will try my best to do so. And in that regard, the announcement is mainly that next Sunday also I would not be having our regular class. So kindly excuse me for that. That will also actually give me some time to prepare quizzes, which is now due. And I have been avoiding or not able to prepare the quizzes for last so many classes. So till now we have done quiz till chapter 5, and now we have to complete the quiz from starting from chapter 6 till chapter 19. And I plan to do that in 2 quizzes, and I will issue those quizzes as soon as possible I am able to finish preparing them. So with that little announcement, thanks a lot for your patience and encouragement throughout this discussion. And soon we will once again meet with the discussion on the quiz of Bhakti Samrat Sindhu or Nectar of Devotion. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
गुरुजी, if possible, एक बार उनको भी अपने जो आ रहे हैं आपके विजिटर गुरुजी,
हाँ जी.
उनका भी अगर एक बार सेशन में दर्शन करा दें या कुछ उनसे लाभ हो जाए तो मेहरबानी होगी जी.
Yeah. So I will certainly try that. As I mentioned that when I will attend these classes, I will try to see that if I can make it live on Zoom or YouTube, so that and share the link with the devotees so that you can also listen to those class, because these classes will be at places like temples, or maybe I think he has also classes scheduled at Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore, which is a technical institute like IITs, a very prominent and a reputed institute, technical institute. So he's visiting that IISC also. He's presenting classes to ISKCON Youth Forum. He's presenting classes to many other different type of communities, and wherever possible, I'm able to make any connection. I will try to make it live, and devotees can actually attend those classes. While attending those classes, if you have any questions, you can WhatsApp those questions, and I will try to put those questions in front of Prabhuji, and he can actually answer those questions live to you while you are attending that class. So we'll try my best to do so. Yeah.
Thanks a million.
Okay, ji. Thank you very much.
Dandavad. Jai Guru. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu.
Aishman Bhavishya
Hare
Subhavishya.
Krishna. Thank you, ji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.